So I'm in my VS Code environment. Let me create a new file. If I can right click, there we go, lecture 1 files.py, and let me kind of bring here everything I want to cover, which goes under file operations, and then we'll look at these topics. I'm going to try to take a look at an example for each, and then wrap this session. So let's start with something very simple, reading the whole file. Let's say we have a text file, and in order to read the text file, let me create the text file. Let's say sample text.txt, and I'm just gonna put something very simple, hello world. This is in my text file. So I'm gonna go back to my code. Here is a simple function that I can define, and I call it read the whole file. Given the file name, I use with open and then the file name, and here is the option R. We were talking about reading mode as file, and this is kind of a boilerplate format, except it's R and W depending on, or A depending on if you want to write or append, as file, and then content. Read file.read basically is going to read the whole file, and I'm putting whatever is in the file to the variable content, and I'm returning the content with this function. So print read whole file, and let's put sample text.txt. So if I run this, let me go back to my Python environment, select shift enter. I did get an error. Actually, that's a good place to explain this. So I am putting sample as long as I didn't put the wrong name, which I didn't. I'm putting sample text here, but it's telling me that there is no such a file or directory, sample text txt. So here is what I suggest you do most of the time when you are actually working or trying to read a specific file from a certain directory. Right click on the file and choose copy path or copy relative path, and later on I'll tell you what's the difference, but the general idea is that copy path gives you the full path for the file, and copy relative path gives you the address to the file in that specific repo. So if I had this file in a separate folder, it would have been relative. So let me try this now, and this is the relative path, right? That's why I couldn't read the file, because this is my root directory one. This is the folder I'm in, right? This is my repository. This is a folder I'm in, and in that folder I have the sample text, right? If I run this now, I can read the whole file. The content is hello world, right? So be a little mindful about this copying the path. I can do right click and copy path instead of copy relative path, and you will see that will be the long path on my computer, on my operating system, but relative path works, and you can just keep it like that. And I suggest using relative path when you are working in a repository or Git folder. Alright, so let's do something. I guess I want to do I think I put the example in the wrong place, so I'm just gonna keep it under reading the whole file and then reading line by line. So this one read the whole file in one shot, right? Sometimes you have a very large or huge text file and you don't want to read the whole file, you just need a certain line, right? So there is a way to read the file line by line. Here we used file.read, but you can actually do something that is a little different to read the file, text file line by line. So I'm going to create sample text, let's say 2.txt, and let's do hello world. Welcome to file operations. Let's do this is ME375 course. Welcome to file operations. So I have 3 lines here. When I go back, here is a simple function which I added something else that I'm going to talk about a little bit, but the general story is this read file line by line is obviously the function. It takes the file name as input. I define a lines variable, or a list, in this case empty list, and I say with open, which we said that's the general format, file name or as the reading mode as file, and then instead of doing file.read to read the whole text file in one shot, I use a for loop, and I say, well, see this file you opened in the reading mode, I iterate the file and let's read it line by line. So the first iteration would be the first line, second iteration with the second line, third iteration with the third line, until it gets to the end of the file. And each file is appended to the list. So I start with an empty list and then I append, each line is appended to a list. For now, I'm gonna take away this strip, and I will talk about it shortly, but for now we don't need dot strip. I'm going to keep it there. So if I call this function read file line by line, and you can remember I am actually taking this, so I'm going to right click and do copy relative path and put that here, and if I run that, you see I get the list here. This is the output. I get the list. Each item in the list is a line in my text file. So this is the first line, this is the second line, and this is the third line. So I'm reading line by line. I didn't have to read all the lines, or I didn't have to capture all the lines. I could just say stop when you get line 3, or maybe read all just the last 2 lines, depending on how you want to, what part of the file you need, if it's a huge file. All right, so and you also see that /n, which basically means after this word we went to a new line. Right? Now if I do add this, in this case I have to do a little bit of manipulation later, but let's just make sure that I don't get any error. If I run that now, you see that /n is gone. So strip basically cleans up, right? It removes white space, and any leading or trailing white space, or if you have some /n, that basically means we went to a new line, but most of the time you don't really need it. Depends on the application, of course. It kind of gets rid of those extra stuff there. For instance, if I had hello world, like space hello world, and then this is 3075 space there's 2 spaces there, and then multiple spaces there. If I don't have this strip here, right, this might be a little better to compare. I run that, you see I get that extra space here, I get that those extra space there before I get to /n. I get these extra spaces here. So dot strip basically cleans up all the leading and trailing spaces, and if you have /n representing going to a new line. So now you see the same text file. When I read the lines, they don't have those leading and trailing extra white space that I had before. So that's kind of a practical, useful function. I'm going to quickly go on a simple a kind of extra comments about strip. So let's have a string, and let's say sample string, so space maybe space is space there, then string, and then print string dot strip strip, and you will see these two. When if I run that, the first one has the space here, and it does have the space after, but just can't say it there. And then of course strip cleans that up. Now aside from strip, you also have functions that are kind of similar to strip. So one is .l strip, another one is string.r strip, and as you might be able to guess, L strip basically removes only the leading white space in a text, and R strip removes trailing white space in a string. So if I run that, you can see that the first one returns. So here's the, I can give myself a little bit more room, kind of clean this here, and then run this again. Now this is the original string, right? L removes the leading. You still have the trailing white space there. R removes the trailing and keeps the leading, and then of course the strip removes all of them. So they're kind of useful methods that you can apply to a string to clean things up when you're reading the text, because not text not always coming in a clean and formatted way. All right, so let's also quickly talk about writing to a file, which is very similar with open file name. The major difference is that we operate in a writing mode, so we can do it to a file as you can write in a whole, or we can write also line by line. If I want to write in one shot, right, I can just say this is the function write to file name, and it takes the file name and the content. What do you want to put in that file? And I can call this function write to file, and then there, let's say I want output.txt. Remember that you actually have to go to the folder if you really want to see where your file is, or wherever you want to put that folder. And this is the file name, and the content would be hello, I need a string, hello world. So if I run that, it doesn't really return anything, none. But if I did everything right, you see I have the output, the same folder. If I open it, it says hello world. So given the file name and the content, I can just write all of it, put all the contents into the file in one shot. And you can do it also line by line, similar to what we did for reading a file. For line in file, you can do the same for line in file. The difference would be reading would be writing mode, and then you kind of have to define the lines. I can just quickly show you the example I have, just so you get a sense of the line by line writing. This is less common, and you might need it. You might not need it that often, but just for the sake of completeness, I will bring the example here. So this example, write multiple lines to file name, output lines, and then here is a list of strings that I want to write to the file, and each one is a line. And pay attention that for line in lines, obviously, which is the input to the function, then I use file.write, the same method. The only difference is before I was doing content, now I'm doing in a for loop, and I'm adding a \n to say that after you're done writing this line, you have to go to the next line. So if I run that, I do need to fix the, not fix, but make sure that I get the file exactly where I want it to be, and then if I run this, shift enter, and I look at my Explorer, here is output lines, and then you see line 1, line 2, line 3. If you do not put it overrides, so I can keep it there. If you do not put it this \n and run it, you will get output lines, but you can see that these are like attached to each other, line 1, line 2, line 3. So depending on how you want your output to be, you can actually add an extra character here.